Everyone, so today I got the opportunity to test out a product that I've actually been waiting to try for a while, and I'm super excited that I was able to get my hands on it. And this is Dehancer. So as a brief introduction, what Dehancer is it's essentially a film look creation tool. It's an entire suite of effects that you can use to basically make your digital footage look a lot more like it was shot on film. Now, this is something that's a really popular look to recreate now, and if you have a project where you don't necessarily have the budget to shoot on film, it's a great workaround and tool to add to your toolkit so that you can essentially recreate a similar effect on your footage without having to spend all of the money. So today, I'm just going to be going through all of the tools that Dehancer is able to offer. Now, I just started using it also, so I definitely have a lot to learn myself, but I just wanted to show you guys the interface and at least give you kind of an introduction of what you're able to accomplish with it. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into it. So for this tutorial, I'm going to be using Dehancer inside of Resolve, which is the software that I do all of my color grading in now. After switching over to Resolve, specifically for coloring, Premiere really just doesn't compare to the capabilities that you have within DaVinci software. Now, the good news is Dehancer is actually available for Resolve, Premiere, After Effects, Final Cut, basically all of the different platforms that you could want it in. And they even now have a mobile version that you can have on your phone, so you can recreate the film look with your photos there. So in Resolve, you can see that I've already got a project open. This was a spec car commercial that I shot a while back. I'm going to be working in a non-color managed workflow within Resolve, which essentially means I'll be using a color space transform in order to take my footage from log into the DaVinci wide gamut color space, which is a much wider color space that I'm able to work within. And then after I've done all of my adjustments, I'll then use another CST in order to bring it from DaVinci wide gamut into the Rec 709 Gamma 2.4 color space, which is what I would be using to deliver. With Dehancer, you want to really add that on to the end of your node tree. Think of Dehancer kind of like a LUT that you're adding on to the end of your footage. You don't want to have too much stuff after that that's building on top of it. Let me go ahead and go to my effects. This is where you'll add on Dehancer, so you can just type in Dehancer. You can see I already have it applied here. And we'll just go through basically all of these features. What you can see right off the bat is that there's a number of different tabs here, each corresponding to a different sort of effect that you can add on. But let me just go ahead and start with the input. This is where you are going to tell Dehancer what kind of footage you're using. So you can see I've already got my source set to DaVinci wide gamut, since that's the color space we are using right now. But if you were going from, if you had footage that was already in Rec 709, you can choose that. Or you can choose a specific profile depending on what your camera was if you were working in a color managed workflow. We've got a couple different adjustments here: exposure, temperature, tint. These are basically your overall balancing adjustments. Now, lots of times what I like to do is I just do my balancing within DaVinci Resolve at the clip level, but if you want to do it all within Dehancer, it's great that you have the option to do it here. And all of these adjustments are essentially affecting your footage pre-Dehancer. If you go down here to the print tab, what you'll see is you also have another setting for exposure, contrast, color density. What these are all going to do is these are going to affect your footage post-Dehancer. So you can think of that as making adjustments on top of the film look that's already being applied, which is going to give you a more realistic look to what would happen if you were actually shooting on film, any adjustments that you make in here. So what I like to do is start out with any broad adjustments in this input category. So if my footage is underexposed or overexposed, I'll go ahead and bring that down or up here, balance it out with the temperature, make any of those adjustments before applying an actual film look to the footage, because once that film look is applied, you'll be a little bit more limited in the kind of broad adjustments that you're able to make. So for this specific clip, what I want to start off with is just bringing up the exposure a little bit. I'm going to open up the footage a little bit. I'm not going to worry too much about these other ones, but just so you can see what they do, you've got overall temperature, tint. So really those balancing adjustments that you want. I'm going to go ahead and just pull this off slightly, push it a little bit away from green towards a more magenta. So wrapping up this input tab here, I'm going to go down to where it says print. And next to profile, you'll see that I have options to choose between a couple different print types. I'm going to go ahead and choose Kodak 2383 and enable that. And what this is doing is it would bring me to a similar place as if I use the Kodak 2383 LUT within Resolve, which is a good starting point. But one of the downsides between the native film emulation within Resolve is that you really can't build much further upon their Kodak 2383 LUT. And one of the great things that Dehancer offers is if I go up to this film tab, I'm able to choose between, a number of different profiles here that all have different looks to them. So I would encourage you to go ahead and just try out a bunch of these, see which ones look the best for you. I'll go ahead and enable it, but there's really a bunch of different options to choose from. So just see whatever you think would work best for you depending on the project that you have. But I'm going to go ahead and select Kodak Vision 3 50D. I'm going to choose the D instead of the T because this was shot outdoors in natural daylight. And then I'm going to go back over to our print tab and just add a little bit of contrast in there. And then I'm going to go ahead and open up this Film Developer tab. One of the tools that I really love within this tab is the color boost setting. So let me just go ahead and bring some saturation back into this image. Color boost is great because it enhances the overall saturation of the image, but it does this in a non-destructive process. So it doesn't lead to any clipping and gives you really deep, rich colors. This is different from this separation setting. Separation is going to affect the most saturated portions of your image first. So if something's overly saturated, you can use that to dial that back a little bit. Both of these are different from just a traditional saturation adjustment within DaVinci, which is just going to adjust the overall saturation of all of the colors and doesn't use that same non-destructive process that you can find with Color Boost. Now coming into the film compression tool, I'm actually going to go ahead and select another clip here that has more highlights so you can really see what this tool does. But if I go ahead and enable it, you can see it really creates a much smoother highlight roll-off, brings a lot of color back into the brighter regions. And I can just go ahead and adjust this impact slider so you can see when impact's at 0, there is no effect of the film compression. But as I bring that up, we really start to get a lot more color that comes back into those highlights. Moving back to our original clip, let me just find a frame that I like here. I'm going to go ahead and open up this expand tab, and you'll see that we also have options to adjust our black point and our white point, which is awesome. Let me go ahead and enable that. But if you want to create, a consistent black level or a consistent white level across your project, this makes it super easy to just set that and apply it to all of your footage. And you can bring up either, the lowest regions of your scopes or the highest regions to really get a consistent look. Moving down to our color head tab, this is essentially a similar effect to your RGB mixer, where it allows you to push the different channels of your image closer to a specific color. So if I enable this, you'll see I have options to go between yellow and blue, magenta and green, or cyan and red. And then there's also more adjustments down here to influence how much of those colors I'm seeing in the shadows, the midtones, and the highlights. This is a super great tool for really developing some interesting looks color-wise on top of the overall film print that you're going for. So I'll just show you a quick example here. I think for this one, I'm just going to go ahead and push it a little bit more towards yellow and do a similar adjustment with magenta, which just kind of feels like it warms up everything, makes it a little bit more of like a evening kind of feel. And then let me see, I'm actually going to push it a little bit towards cyan, which I think gives it some nice separation between the car and the background. And I really just kind of like to mess around with this and find something that I feel works really well depending on the overall look that I'm trying to achieve. And then down here, we'll mess around with the shadows, midtones, and highlights. I'm actually going to start with the highlights because I know that'll affect my street and my car there. So I'm just going to pull those areas off a little bit. And then with my midtones and shadows, I'm going to push those the opposite direction. And this is really just giving me some nice separation. If I enable this on and off, you can see that it's making the background a lot warmer while, keeping the car a nice blue and really just making it pop more against the background. So this is a great tool, once again, for really just creating some interesting looks that you can build off of the film look. So now getting into the more effects components of this, you can see I've got options for film grain, halation, bloom, film damage, film breath, gate weave, all things that are pretty unique to film, but really awesome tools that you get access to within Dehancer to help build out that look. So if I go to grain, let me just open this up. They've got a bunch of different options. Got 8mm, 16mm, 35, all the way up to 65 with different ISO levels. So the lower the ISO level, the finer your grain is going to be. Whereas, the higher the ISO level, the more intense you're going to get. And with each one of these, I'm just going to go ahead and select 35mm, 250 ISO. So if you select that and then you go to the custom setting, it opens up a bunch more options so that you can really dial in the specific film look that you want. But for the time being, I'm just going to go with this template. Halation, same sort of thing. Let me just zoom in here so you can see. When I enable this, you get this really nice halation forming around the headlights there. It's not too overpowering, and you can adjust how much you want to amplify it if you want it to be stronger or more minimal, and then also a number of different presets that you can choose from. So I'm just going to go ahead and stick with 35mm again and keep it on the lower end there. It's subtle, but it's really a great addition to the footage. You also have an option for blooming, just to soften out the highlights a little bit more even. I'm not going to have it too much on this because I want to keep the car looking sharp, but a great option to have and really nice if you're shooting talent where you want an overall softer feel to your footage. Film damage, film breath, gate weave, all of these are things that are unique to film, which really just help sell that effect even more. I'm going to jump over those and just go to the overscan option because I think this is cool. So if I enable this, you'll see that you have a bunch of different templates to choose from, which will give you different film scans that you can see on your footage. So also a bunch of different options in here to choose from. But something that's really fun that's cool. Something that's really fun to play around with. And normally you would have to, find these as overlays and then add them in after, but it's great to just have them all in one tool right here. Vignetting. So something I love about this tool, let me just go ahead and enable it. You can see it's drawing a lot of attention to the car in the center. If I select mask mode right here, you'll see, but it's creating a window around the center of the frame, and it's darkening all of the areas outside of that window. So this really just helps draw your attention in towards the center, which for this example is where I want your attention because that's where the car is. But what I love about this mask mode is you can see exactly where it's affecting. So I'm just going to go ahead and change the aspect ratio, bring up the size a little bit. So when I turn off mask mode here and toggle it, you can see it really just darkens the outside. And I can also adjust how intense I want that effect to be. So I'm just going to go ahead and have it sit somewhere around here. For LUT generator, something that's great about this is you can go ahead and take any of the color or exposure adjustments that you've made and turn those into a LUT so that you can use them for editing or viewing on a monitor or on your camera. Any of these more detailed effects like the gate weave, overscan, and film breath, these will not get applied into the LUT. But as far as your overall color and exposure adjustments, those will all get added in, which is great. Then down here under options, you'll see that there are two different quality settings: normal, which will have faster playback and will be less intensive on your computer, and then high, which will be slower and more intensive but have better quality. So what I usually like to do, and one of the reasons that it's great to have Dehancer in either your group post clip tab or the timeline tab, is that you can go ahead and change this to normal or keep it in normal while you're actually making the adjustments. And then when you're ready to export, all you have to do is go down, switch this to high, and it'll apply to all of your different clips. So that's just a super easy way to make that adjustment and not have to go into each individual one. This basically wraps up the overall look at Dehancer. Let me just go ahead and toggle this effect now. You can see our before and after and how much this is really doing to our footage. It's pretty crazy the different looks that you're able to get with this. And this is just one example with me kind of going through showing you briefly what this plugin is capable of. I'm super excited to be able to use this on future projects where we don't necessarily have the budget or the means to shoot on film, but you still want to get that really amazing film look. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch through this whole tutorial. If you made it this far, I hope I was able to give you a better inside look at the capabilities of Dehancer and what kind of looks you're able to get out of it. So go ahead and check them out and see if it's something that would work well for you.